Absence is often misunderstood. In a world that glorifies constant presence, endless noise, and perpetual engagement, absence appears to be a weakness. But in truth, absence carries its own force, one that is rarely acknowledged but deeply transformative. When something or someone is absent, it creates a space, and within that space lies the possibility of awareness, reflection, and growth. Absence is not a void to be feared, but a quiet force that teaches us to see differently, to feel differently, and to exist differently. Think about silence in a conversation. We are so used to filling every pause with words that silence often feels uncomfortable. Yet, in the absence of sound, what emerges? There is the opportunity to hear what lies beneath the words, the emotions, the unspoken truths, the subtle energies that are often drowned out by noise. In silence, one learns to listen, not only to others but also to oneself. Silence allows the mind to slow down, and when the mind slows down, clarity begins to appear. This is the first glimpse of the power of absence. It removes distractions so that the essential can reveal itself. Absence also teaches us the impermanence of all things. When something is gone, when we no longer have access to what once was, we become aware of how attached we had become. The absence of comfort reveals how dependent we were on it. The absence of distraction shows how restless we have become. The absence of a familiar person, place, or habit exposes the depth of our attachments. This is not to make us suffer, but to awaken us to how much power we have given away to what is external. Through absence, we see the truth of our dependency, and in seeing this truth, the possibility of freedom arises. In the practice of discipline, absence is used intentionally. Fasting is the absence of food. Meditation is the absence of external stimulation. Retreat is the absence of society. These practices are not about punishing the body or mind, but about creating space. When food is absent, we discover our relationship to hunger, to craving, to patience. When external stimulation is absent, we discover the constant restlessness of the mind. When society is absent, we discover how much of our identity has been shaped by others. In each form of absence, we are invited to confront ourselves directly, without escape, without a mask. This confrontation is not always comfortable, but it is powerful. Absence can also be seen as a teacher of value. When something is always present, it is easy to overlook its worth. Only when it is gone does its value become visible. The absence of health teaches us how precious it was when we were well. The absence of peace teaches us how vital stillness was when it was present. The absence of time with someone teaches us how limited our moments together truly are. In this way, absence sharpens our perception. It is through absence that appreciation becomes alive. There is another layer to absence that many miss. Absence is not only about what is taken away, but also about what is made possible. The absence of excess creates the presence of simplicity. The absence of unnecessary words allows truth to be spoken. The absence of clutter allows clarity of space. In this way, absence is not an emptiness to be filled, but an opening to be honored. Too often, people fear the absence of activity, fearing boredom or loneliness. But if one looks deeper, boredom is only the surface layer. Beneath it lies creativity, insight, and a deeper connection to one's own being. Absence also reveals strength. In the absence of comfort, resilience is born. In the absence of certainty, adaptability is trained. In the absence of approval, self-reliance emerges. It is often in the moments when we feel something missing that we begin to cultivate inner resources we did not know we had. Absence forces us inward, and within that inward journey lies a power greater than anything external could provide. Consider the absence of light in a dark room. At first, there is fear, disorientation, discomfort. But as the eyes adjust, the shapes of the room begin to appear. What seemed like emptiness begins to reveal detail, shadow, and depth. The same is true of absence in life. At first, it feels like a loss, like something essential is missing. But with patience, the eyes of the soul begin to adjust. New dimensions are revealed, new strengths discovered, new wisdom gained. Absence does not mean abandonment. It does not mean lack of care or indifference. Absence means a shift in form, a withdrawal of what once was to make space for what can be. The absence of a teacher forces the student to remember the lessons. The absence of guidance pushes one to trust their own instincts. The absence of control allows life to unfold naturally. These are not losses, but opportunities disguised as emptiness. Absence also creates balance. Just as music is not only the notes but the spaces between them, life is not only about what is present, but also about what is absent. Without absence, presence loses its meaning. Without silence, sound has no depth. Without stillness, movement has no purpose. Absence is not the opposite of presence, but its partner, its complement, its hidden strength. The power of absence lies in its ability to transform perception. It challenges us to go beyond surface appearances and confront the spaces we often avoid. It strips away illusions, reveals dependency, and opens the door to resilience. It teaches us value through loss and strength through lack. It forces us inward, toward silence, toward self-awareness, toward an understanding that true presence is born only when one has learned to embrace absence. Self-mastery is the quiet discipline that stands before all other forms of mastery in life. It is not about controlling the world, bending others to your will, or shaping circumstances in ways that give you comfort. It is about the ability to understand, regulate, and direct the very core of your being. Before there can be wisdom, before there can be balance, before there can be lasting growth, there must be mastery of the self. This is the ground upon which everything else is built. Without it, external victories are fragile, fleeting, and ultimately hollow. With it, even the smallest step becomes meaningful. Even the simplest act becomes infused with clarity. When we speak of self-mastery, we often think of control, the suppression of emotions, the denial of impulses, the cutting away of desires. But true self-mastery is not suppression, it is awareness. It is the ability to recognize the wave as it rises within you, to feel the fire of anger, the rush of fear, the pull of craving, and yet not be pulled under by these currents. Self-mastery is standing firmly in the center of the storm and realizing you are not the storm itself. The storm may rage, but it passes. You remain. The ability to remain unshaken, grounded, awake is the essence of mastery. Consider how many battles in life are lost before they even begin, not because the external world is too powerful, but because the internal world has not been trained. A person without self-mastery reacts rather than responds. They are driven by impulses, by the habits of the past, by emotions that swell and crash without discipline. The mind becomes like a wild horse, dragging the rider wherever it pleases. No matter how much knowledge is gained, no matter how many strategies are learned, if the reins of the mind are not held with clarity, chaos will always prevail. Self-mastery is the art of holding those reins, of guiding the mind not by force but by presence, patience, and consistent discipline. The ancient wisdom of many traditions points again and again to the same truth, that all external struggles are but reflections of the inner struggle. To seek to control others while failing to control oneself is like trying to calm the ocean while letting your own heart remain in turbulence. The world reflects back to you the state of your inner being. When the mind is scattered, the world appears scattered. When the heart is heavy, the world seems heavy. When one has cultivated mastery within, clarity arises and the same world is seen with different eyes. The outer does not change, but your relationship to it transforms completely. Self-mastery also means taking responsibility. It is easy to blame circumstances, to look at others as the cause of suffering, to point fingers at fate or fortune. But the deeper path begins when you turn inward and ask, how am I contributing to this? What habits of thought keep me locked in the same patterns? What emotions am I feeding that return again and again like uninvited guests? To master the self is to become the one who no longer runs from these questions, but faces them directly. It is not about perfection, it is about responsibility. The moment you take ownership of your inner state, the possibility of transformation opens. One of the greatest obstacles to self-mastery is distraction. The modern world constantly pulls attention outward, to screens, to voices, to endless streams of information. But mastery cannot be cultivated in fragments. It requires the ability to sit with oneself without escape, to feel boredom without fleeing, to feel discomfort without numbing, to feel restlessness without running. Only in stillness do you come to understand the patterns of your own mind. Only in silence do you hear the subtle whispers of your deeper self. Self-mastery begins with attention, and attention is trained in silence. Without this training, the mind remains scattered, enslaved to the next stimulus, the next demand, the next noise. Discipline is the structure that supports mastery. Discipline is not punishment, it is consistency. It is choosing the higher path again and again, even when the lower path offers immediate comfort. Waking when it is easier to sleep, breathing when it is easier to shout, pausing when it is easier to react. Discipline turns fleeting insights into lasting transformation. Without discipline, self-mastery remains an idea. With discipline, it becomes a living practice. Yet self-mastery is not rigidity. It is not about crushing the self into submission. It is about balance. Too much rigidity leads to brittleness, and brittleness always breaks. Self-mastery is fluid, like water, strong enough to wear away stone, flexible enough to adapt to any vessel. It does not resist life, it flows with it. To master yourself is not to lock yourself in chains of rules, but to find freedom within discipline. The chains already exist when you are ruled by your impulses. Mastery cuts them away and opens the path to true choice. Every act of growth requires this foundation. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. You cannot sustain peace if you cannot find it within. You cannot create harmony in the outer world if your inner world is fragmented. Self-mastery first, for it is the doorway to everything else. When you have begun to master yourself, even partially, you realize that the power you sought outside was always rooted inside. Strength does not come from the approval of others, but from the alignment of your own being. Success does not come from chance, but from consistent practice. Freedom does not come from avoiding difficulty, but from training the mind and heart to meet difficulty with clarity. Self-mastery first, because without it, every pursuit will be built on unstable ground. Self-mastery first, because it turns knowledge into wisdom and struggle into strength. Self-mastery first, because when the mind is steady, the world opens, and when the heart is aligned, life itself becomes an expression of clarity. There is a language that transcends sound, one that requires no alphabet, no grammar, no spoken syllable. It is the language of energy, the silent communication that takes place before words ever arrive, the subtle yet undeniable presence that emanates from within and reaches others without effort. Every human being, whether aware of it or not, is constantly transmitting energy. And it is this silent force, not the carefully chosen words, that shapes the quality of our relationships, influences our surroundings, and reveals who we truly are. Words may deceive, but energy cannot lie. When you walk into a room, before you have spoken a single word, others can sense something about you. The posture of your body, the calmness or restlessness of your eyes, the rhythm of your breathing, the steadiness of your presence, all of these are signals of your energy. Some people command attention without raising their voice, while others speak endlessly yet remain unheard. This is the difference between words and energy. Energy is presence, resonance, vibration. It cannot be faked and it cannot be silenced. Think of how often you meet someone who says all the right things, yet something inside of you does not trust them. Their words may sound convincing, but their energy feels inconsistent. The body picks up on subtleties the mind cannot explain. You sense hesitation in their tone, unease in their movements, or emptiness behind their smile. And in contrast, you meet someone who speaks little, yet their presence alone calms you, inspires you, or fills you with confidence. This is the silent strength of energy. Words belong to the realm of the mind, but energy belongs to the realm of being. When energy and words are aligned, the message is powerful, authentic, and lasting. When they are not aligned, words dissolve quickly and leave no impact. This is why one teacher may speak volumes but leave no impression, while another may speak only a few sentences that stay with you for a lifetime. It is not the words alone, it is the energy carried within them that gives them life. Energy reflects the state of your inner world. If your mind is restless, if your heart is unsettled, if your body is tense, that unrest leaks into every word you speak, every action you take, every interaction you engage in. Even if you attempt to cover it with a smile or polished language, others can feel the hidden storm. But when the inner world is steady, when the mind is quiet, when the heart is open, then your presence carries peace without needing to announce it. That peace becomes the loudest message you can deliver. Consider the way nature communicates. A mountain does not speak, yet it communicates strength and stability. The ocean does not speak, yet its rhythm conveys power and eternity. A tree does not speak, yet it radiates patience, rootedness, and resilience. These forces communicate not with words but with energy. They teach us that the most profound messages are often unspoken. In human life, energy also determines the direction of relationships. If you carry bitterness, you project bitterness, and the people around you feel it. If you cultivate gratitude, you project gratitude, and the people around you receive it. Words may tell someone, "I am fine," but energy reveals the truth of whether you are fine or not. And it is this truth, not the surface explanation that others respond to. You may attempt to hide sadness, but a child will sense it. You may try to mask anger, but the atmosphere around you will change. Energy cannot be concealed because it speaks louder than words. Energy is also a force of attraction and repulsion. People are drawn to those whose energy nourishes them and repelled by those whose energy drains them. This is not about charm, appearance, or eloquence. It is about the quality of vibration you emit. If your inner state is filled with conflict, others will feel tension when near you. If your inner state is harmonized, others will feel at ease in your presence. Without effort, without persuasion, without speeches, energy communicates directly. The mastery of energy begins with awareness. To become conscious of your energy is to become conscious of the signals you continuously send. This awareness leads to responsibility. The responsibility to refine your inner world, to cleanse what is heavy, to cultivate what is light, to embody the qualities you wish to spread. For if energy is always speaking, then the question becomes, what is your energy saying right now? When silence is filled with presence, it communicates more than endless noise. A single glance can encourage, a quiet presence can heal, a stillness can inspire. Those who understand energy do not need to force their words. They embody the message so completely that even in stillness it radiates. In this way, energy is the foundation of influence, the unseen force behind every meaningful exchange, the true language of human connection. Energy speaks before words, during words, and after words have faded. It lingers in the air long after conversations are forgotten. It leaves impressions that cannot be erased by explanations. It is the current that flows beneath the surface of human interaction, subtle yet undeniable, invisible yet more powerful than any sound when something is abundant. It becomes easy to overlook. When something is rare, it captures attention, it holds weight, and it commands reverence. Scarcity shapes the perception of value in ways that are deeply rooted in human nature and the natural order. If one were to look at water in the desert, it is no longer something ordinary, it becomes life itself. If one were to consider the silence in a world full of endless noise, it becomes a luxury more precious than gold. Scarcity does not only apply to resources outside of us, it also applies to the qualities within us. Attention, time, energy, and focus are the very currencies of life, and their value rises because they are limited. To understand how value emerges, one must first understand how scarcity governs both the external world and the internal one. In every society, the most treasured materials are those that cannot be easily found. Diamonds, gold, jade, and rare stones are symbols of worth, not because they serve the greatest practical function, but because they are scarce. The same law applies to the unseen dimensions of life. Discipline is rare, so it is valued. Integrity is rare, so it is respected. Commitment is rare, so it is sought after. In this way, scarcity functions as a filter. It separates what is ordinary from what is extraordinary, what is common from what is exceptional. When one begins to understand this, one realizes that creating value is not about adding more, but about recognizing the power of the rare. Time itself is the greatest example. Every person is given only a limited span of existence. No matter how powerful, wealthy, or intelligent one becomes, no one can increase the total amount of time they have been given. This scarcity makes time the most valuable resource in existence. Yet many treat it as though it were infinite, spending it without awareness, scattering it across distractions, or trading it for things that offer no growth. To waste time is to waste life. To respect time is to respect existence. Scarcity teaches the lesson that what is limited must be handled with care, for once it is gone, it cannot be regained. Energy follows the same principle. Every individual has only a finite amount of energy each day. When energy is scattered in multiple directions, it diminishes in strength. But when it is conserved and focused on a singular path, it becomes powerful. The scarcity of energy makes it necessary to prioritize, to decide where to invest and where to withdraw. This is why those who know how to channel their energy create results that seem extraordinary. They are not extraordinary in their possession of energy, but in their awareness of its scarcity and their wisdom in directing it. Even words gain value through scarcity. When one speaks endlessly, the words lose power, like coins printed in endless supply until they lose worth. But when one speaks little and speaks with intention, each word becomes heavy, carrying weight. Silence, then, is not emptiness but a form of scarcity that creates depth. In silence, value is created not by the abundance of sound but by its absence. in restraint, value is created not by showing everything, but by revealing only what matters. Scarcity teaches the art of discipline, of conserving, of waiting, and of allowing value to rise through limitation. Relationships too are shaped by scarcity. A person who gives their presence freely to everyone, without boundaries, dilutes the significance of their presence, but a person who is mindful of their company, who offers their time and energy with care, becomes valued. The rare qualities of loyalty, honesty, and authenticity are what elevate a connection from ordinary to meaningful. If these qualities were abundant in everyone, they would lose their rarity. Yet it is their scarcity that gives them such importance. This is why true trust is revered, why deep companionship is treasured, and why honesty feels sacred. Scarcity creates value not by withholding for the sake of withholding, but by elevating through rarity. Scarcity also forces one to make choices. When one realizes that resources are limited, clarity emerges. Choices sharpen. Without scarcity, there would be no need to decide, no need to weigh, no need to discern. But scarcity demands discernment. It demands that one ask what truly matters, what is worth the investment of time, energy, and attention. It is through scarcity that the trivial is separated from the essential. Scarcity becomes the invisible teacher that sharpens awareness, teaching the art of selection, the art of prioritization, and the art of sacrifice. One can see this principle reflected in the natural world. When winter arrives, resources become scarce, and creatures learn to conserve, to migrate, to adapt. In times of scarcity, survival instincts sharpen, creativity awakens, and resilience is forged. Scarcity is not only a source of value, but also a catalyst for growth. Without scarcity, there would be no striving, no stretching beyond one's limits, no discovery of hidden strengths. Scarcity is not merely the absence of abundance, it is the condition that calls forth hidden potential. The rarity of life itself is what gives it meaning. If one could live forever, each day would lose its brilliance. It is the very limit of existence that makes each moment sacred. Scarcity reveals beauty. A sunset is beautiful because it does not last. A flower is treasured because it blooms for only a short time. A season is appreciated because it passes. Scarcity sharpens the senses to the miracle of the fleeting. When one sees through the eyes of scarcity, one stops taking for granted, and in doing so, one begins to awaken to the preciousness of all things. To create value, one does not need to chase abundance. One needs to cultivate rarity. Rarity of focus in a distracted world. Rarity of stillness in a restless world. Rarity of integrity in a compromised world. Rarity of presence in a disconnected world. Scarcity is the soil in which value grows, and it is through understanding scarcity that one can learn the art of truly creating worth. When we speak of strength, most people imagine a force that pushes forward without breaking, a solid wall that cannot be moved, or a body that resists all pressure. But true strength does not always reveal itself in such obvious ways. True strength is often born in silence, in retreat, in the unseen moments where one withdraws in order to rebuild. The return with strength is not about never falling, never breaking, or never being lost. It is about what happens when one comes back, different, deeper, and carrying a force that was not there before. There are moments in life when the world demands that you step away. To retreat is not weakness, though the mind may perceive it that way. The ego resists withdrawal because it wants to maintain the image of dominance and control. But stepping back, falling silent, even disappearing for a while, allows something greater to take root. Like the seed buried beneath the soil, hidden from all eyes, covered in darkness, it looks like nothing is happening. Yet within, the seed is splitting, reshaping, preparing for growth. The return of the seed is not the same as its burial. It emerges as a plant, something transformed. Strength often requires this incubation. When we hold on too tightly to the idea that we must constantly show up, constantly prove ourselves, constantly be seen, we drain the very energy that could empower us. The cycle of strength is one of gathering and releasing, contracting and expanding, entering and returning. Without retreat, return is impossible. Without stillness, movement loses its clarity. Without silence, sound loses its meaning. The return with strength is the return of clarity. It is the moment when confusion gives way to understanding, when scattered energy becomes focused. When one has walked through difficulty, endured loss, or carried pain, the return is marked by a presence that was not there before. The strength is not simply physical, it is an inner gravity, a calm that commands without needing to force. This is the strength that people feel even if no word is spoken. The process of returning with strength is like the rhythm of breathing. One cannot only inhale forever. The lungs must release, they must empty, they must let go. In the emptiness of the exhale, the body is prepared to receive again. Likewise, in the emptiness of retreat, the spirit prepares itself to rise again. To return after retreat is to come back with breath renewed, with energy replenished. The return also carries wisdom. Experience itself shapes the strength of the one who returns. To face hardship and step away does not mean defeat. It means that in the stillness, lessons are gathered, wounds are tended to, perspectives are reshaped. When the return happens, strength is not only power but understanding. The returner has seen the depths, has known the silence, and now stands rooted in something unshakable. Strength after retreat is also resilience. There is a difference between force and resilience. Force tries to overpower, resilience absorbs, bends, and yet remains intact. When you return with strength, it is not about breaking everything in your path. It is about moving with a resilience that cannot be destroyed. Like bamboo that bends in the wind but does not break, this kind of strength is enduring. The return with strength is not always loud. It does not need to announce itself. Sometimes the most powerful return is subtle, quiet, like water flowing back to its source. Those who can see beyond appearances will recognize it immediately. It is not the boastful claim of having conquered, but the silent radiance of someone who has gone away, worked within, and now stands unshaken. Even in nature we see this truth. The winter strips the trees bare, makes them appear lifeless, yet in this apparent death the roots grow deeper, unseen. When spring arrives, the return is not just a repetition of the old. The blossoms appear brighter, the branches fuller, the growth more expansive. The return of spring carries the strength of the silent winter behind it. Without the withdrawal, there could be no renewal. To return with strength is also to embody patience. It means not rushing the process of rebuilding. It means understanding that growth has its timing, that silence cannot be skipped, that the soil of struggle must be given time to nurture what will rise again. When the return happens, it is because the inner timing has matured, not because the world demanded it. The strength lies in the refusal to rush, in the willingness to wait until the right moment reveals itself. When strength returns, it becomes an offering. It inspires others who witness it, showing them that retreat is not failure, that stillness is not weakness, that falling back can be the preparation for standing taller. It demonstrates that strength is not linear, not a constant display, but a rhythm of expansion and contraction. It shows that every ending has a hidden beginning, every silence holds a potential voice, every retreat contains the seed of return. The return with strength is, therefore, not an act of resistance but of alignment. It means the inner being is aligned once more with its source. It is not about proving anything outwardly, but about living from a center that no longer wavers. In this alignment, strength radiates effortlessly, like the sun rising after night, like the tide returning to the shore. It comes back not because it must, but because it cannot do otherwise. It is the natural cycle of renewal, the inevitable rhythm of life itself. Life often appears as a constant pursuit. From the moment one wakes until the day closes, there is a subtle pressure that whispers, keep moving, keep achieving, keep chasing. Chasing becomes the default setting of the mind. It is taught from a young age: chase recognition, chase success, chase love, chase approval, chase happiness. And in that endless pursuit, one often forgets to ask whether what is being chased was ever chosen consciously or simply inherited from the noise of the world. The act of chasing contains within it a hidden assumption that what is wanted is always somewhere else, always out of reach, always just beyond the horizon. Chasing creates a constant gap between the self and fulfillment. No matter how fast the legs move or how focused the eyes become, the mind insists that satisfaction lies ahead, not here. This is the trap of the chase. It convinces one to pour out energy towards something that may not even belong to their true essence. Choosing, however, is a different path. Choosing begins in stillness, not in restless motion. To choose means to step back from the momentum of chasing and ask, what do I truly want? What aligns with the rhythm of my being? In choosing, the energy no longer scatters outward in desperation. It settles inward with clarity. What is chosen is not pursued with frantic speed, but lived with grounded conviction. The difference between chasing and choosing lies not in external action, but in internal orientation. Both may involve effort, but one effort is fueled by lack and the other by alignment. Chasing says, I am incomplete until I catch it. Choosing says, I am whole, and this is the direction I will walk. One leaves a person exhausted, the other makes them radiant. When life is lived in chasing, comparison becomes unavoidable. The eyes look outward, measuring progress against others, always calculating how far behind or ahead one might be. The heart becomes heavy with pressure, because in chasing there is no rest. Even in moments of achievement, the satisfaction is fleeting as the next pursuit immediately appears. In this way, chasing becomes endless, like running on a treadmill that never stops, where speed increases but destination never arrives. Choosing breaks that cycle. When one chooses, comparison loses its grip because the path walked is no longer about what others are doing. It becomes about alignment with what feels true, not what looks impressive. Choosing transforms movement into intention, and intention into peace. The steps taken are the same, yet the weight carried is different. Instead of being dragged by desire, the person becomes guided by clarity. It is not easy to shift from chasing to choosing because the world celebrates the chase. Society rewards those who run endlessly, who accumulate more, who sacrifice rest for speed. The culture of chasing is disguised as ambition, and stepping away from it can feel like rebellion. Yet, within the silence of choosing, there is a freedom that no external prize can replace. The freedom of knowing that life is not a race, but a path that unfolds as one walks it. Chasing is fueled by fear. Fear of missing out, fear of not being enough, fear of being left behind. Choosing is rooted in trust. Trust that what is aligned will unfold. Trust that nothing essential can be taken away. Trust that life supports those who move with intention rather than desperation. Fear drains energy, trust multiplies it. In fear, every action feels urgent. In trust, every action feels deliberate. This transformation is subtle yet profound. A person may still work hard, may still set goals, may still pursue growth. But when it is chosen rather than chased, the quality of the journey shifts entirely. The mind is no longer restless, the body no longer tense, the spirit no longer fragmented. Choosing brings unity within, while chasing scatters. To move from chasing to choosing requires awareness. Awareness of when the body is restless, when the mind is constantly projecting into the future, when the heart feels like it is always waiting for something to arrive. In that awareness, one can pause. In that pause, one can breathe. And in that breath, the realization arises, I do not have to chase what is already within me. I can choose it here now. The greatest irony is that many of the things chased with such urgency often lose their meaning once attained. The job, the recognition, the possession, the relationship. Once in hand, they reveal themselves as temporary satisfactions. But when something is chosen, it carries a different weight. Chosen paths bring a sense of depth, a sense of belonging, because they come not from external demand but internal resonance. To choose is to declare, I will no longer exhaust myself in pursuit of shadows. I will stand still, and from this stillness, I will step forward only toward what echoes with truth. This is not passivity, it is power. The power to align, the power to focus, the power to live without scattering energy in 1,000 directions that were never truly meant to be followed. From chasing to choosing is the movement from restlessness to peace, from lack to abundance, from desperation to clarity. It is not about abandoning effort, but about redirecting effort into what is truly aligned. In chasing, one hopes to eventually arrive. In choosing, one realizes that arrival is already here, and each step forward is simply an expansion of that awareness.